You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here is a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is. Eric Crouch. 15, 10.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this
Welcome.
podcast. As always, we're your host Blake, my brother Brooks, and it's a weird day. Glad to be back. I'm going to go over our season predictions. We'll do our full UTEP breakdown next week. But yeah, a couple things have happened. But remember to please like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. You can follow us on Twitter.
So in preparation for the
CHC_corner.
UTEP week, I'm planning on just playing NCAA 25 over and over again as UTEP against all the best teams, just to see what their best players are. And then watching Glory Road 3 or 4 times.
That works.
Yes, but like he was saying before I cut him off for that stupid joke, follow us on Twitter at CHC Corner. It's about to be popping off over there. We will be giving, live tweet type commentary as things go on. And it's ramping up. Season's almost here. So so what are we starting with?
Yeah, we'll start with some news. Officially.
New news.
Officially, Dylan Raiola is the starter. That happened yesterday. So that's got no duh. That's kind of like the take from everybody. There's the kind of tempering of expectations, but there's also like massive hype behind it. The people that hate Nebraska are like, well, what are you talking about? He's just a true freshman. And, people that are drinking the Rool-Aid are really gung-ho. Unfortunately, a lot of the people in the actual media, they're on the Rool-Aid side. So it's not really good for tempering expectations if you're a fan. But so that happened. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's hard to temper expectations when, the most viral Nebraska related, Twitter conversation in the last 3 months was, oh, look at how this guy looks and acts and walks just like Patrick Mahomes. It's like they're comparing our quarterback to, probably, the greatest quarterback living right now that's playing in the league. That he is. And there's a real argument, especially considering NFL has gotten better and better and better over the years, maybe not tougher and tougher, but more and more athletic. I think we could argue that Pat might be the best quarterback of all time. So they have our quarterback comparison is that guy. So it doesn't temper expectations right there. And then when you do a deeper dive into Nebraska, you look at it and you're like, okay, they were actually a pretty good roster last year that just made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
that's really what it is.
And all the people that are like, what are you saying? They haven't won more than 5 games and so long. I'm like, well, you're the casual fan that just watches Alabama or Georgia or something just you pick a team because they're winning and you just watch those games and you don't really look into anything else.
Right.
We get the best of both worlds because we get to see all the shit and also the good stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty good picture, and it's really it's encouraging. I'm still massively tempered my expectations, as you'll see from our predictions here in a bit. But
like I said the other day on our phone conversation, it's like we're still of childbearing age. We're a beautiful woman, still of childbearing age, who's now been divorced 8 times, and it's like we're now going into our 9th potential marriage. And we're like, maybe this one's going to be the one that works out. Maybe this is the happily ever after. So I think I'm hoping the lesson that's going to be illustrated to us this year is that it is true that losing sucks much more than winning is awesome. I hope that's the type of lessons that we're learning as fans going into the year. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun season, a lot of hype building up to it. And, there's reasons to point to that this one might be different. Like I said, a lot of the roster returning, that was a good roster. And it was a team that just made a lot of mistakes. I mean, mistakes that were uncharacteristic of the team skill, so
yeah, and it really, like, if you watch it, like most educated people, which is why a lot of the pundits, both just ones that are just on YouTube and national, are kind of saying the most positive thing, because they watch a lot of college football. They see what our problems were last year. They see that our turnovers were terrible. Our quarterback play was subpar at best, and we lost most games by only like 3 points. So there's a lot to be
subpar
happy
at
about.
best.
Yeah,
subpar at best is like it's perfect way to describe it, because it was like, even operating at full tilt, we were like, a 70 in the 70s type rank at full tilt. You know what I mean? But then overall, obviously, you're fumbling the amount we're fumbling and throwing the picks that you throw, and then the averages out. We were like, the 5th worst, offense in the college football last year. It was just insane. I mean, that's the power of turnovers, really. And where did the turnovers come from? Well, mainly they came from a running back that's gone now. And all respect to Anthony Grant. I think he had a lot of talent, actually, but he's gone. And then the quarterback position, where we got, that player that we were talking about right at the beginning of this. So yeah, he's been named the starter. It's exciting. It's the cat's out of the bag. We don't have to say we assume anymore. We can just say he is.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. We all saw the spring game, man. And this is Division I college football. There's no more room for like, oh, I like this guy, he's a fun story, so he should be in there. It's like that. We should be beyond that as Nebraska. And if there's a Heinrich Harburg or a Logan Smothers or somebody like that comes along, that's just a really good story, a fun guy you want to root for, and he also is, the guy who's skilled. That I think that's what Raiola is. I mean, look, like his dad was an All-American in Nebraska, has his name on the stadium. Yeah. He was absolute legend, long career. I mean, Matthew Stafford is Dylan Raiola's godfather, and there was a clip that circulated around the internet the other day that was talking about Matthew Stafford. He seemed like he was just kind of being coy, didn't want to dive into details too much before like he proves it on the field or whatever, but he's just kind of like, man, that kid is a stud. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And that's pretty high praise. Matthew Stafford is like a quarterback's quarterback. Like people who really know ball love Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. No, exactly. He's one of those like underrated quarterbacks, and he's been in the league now for like very long time.
Yeah.
So like he's earned that kind of recognition and everything. And he played with Dylan's dad and everything. So like he has intimate knowledge. He's been watching him since he was a kid. So he knows what type of person he is. I mean, he just has to take the next step on the next level. And but
yeah, I mean, he's the most well-prepared true freshman going into the situation like this that's maybe ever existed, just because the circumstances haven't been there. I mean, like maybe like an Arch Manning or someone like that, but they already had Quinn Ewers, so he didn't have to start yet. Yeah. And then by all accounts, Arch was still kind of wet behind the ears when he first got to college football anyway. So with Dylan, he was like the number one recruit in the nation. And not only that, it was like, man, he's polished. And then it was like, he grew up going to Thanksgiving every year with Matthew Stafford, and he's trained with Bobby Schroep and Pat Mahomes for the last 4 years. And it's like, you just look at, and then you look at his stats: 34 touchdowns, 1 interception at in his senior year of high school, which was, he was playing in a league that was one of the best in the country with, multiple 5 stars on his roster. So, I mean, there's a lot there, but the time is now. I mean, it's August 22nd. We're 9 days away. We're finally gonna get to see.
Yeah.
Like, will we finally get out of the slump of losing?
Yeah. So, With that being said, there was another thing that came out today.
Yes.
And then we can get to our predictions. But
Yes, real quick, we'll talk
some
about this.
trouble down in Iowa, where
no.
they had some violations. Why don't you fill the people in on exactly what happened? Because I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was something to have to do with Cade McNamara.
Yeah.
They committed a violation recruiting Cade McNamara, tampering, something along those lines, which is funny because Cade McNamara wasn't even. I mean, he was about to get beat out by JJ McCarthy anyway when he transferred, so it wasn't like they were stealing Michigan's starting quarterback or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then he comes in and immediately gets hurt for Iowa, so he doesn't play that whole year. And now they're going into his second year, so it's like Cade's going to be our starting quarterback. He was named the starting quarterback today, but I mean, one of the funny lines, funny sort of storylines I heard coming out of Iowa's camp was Cade McNamara's stats after their first scrimmage. It was like 4 for 17 for like 26 yards and 2 picks.
Yeah.
and then Kirk was asked. He was asked like, is that indicative of Cade's normal performance? And Kirk was like, yeah, that's indicative of Cade's normal performance. And so, like, all this in mind, they got, bopped by the NCAA, I guess it would be, for a recruiting violation having to do with Cade McNamara. And, I think I've always respected Kirk Ferentz and his program, even though I think they're the most boring. Like, they're just boring. Like, even though you don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's not even like, it's gotten to the point where we, both teams kind of talk shit every year. But for me, it's mostly like, if I look at it from a neutral standpoint, like, Iowa is just boring. They are just a boring program. So it's unsalted mashed potatoes and Kirk Ferentz, but I do have respect for him, and they are solid, and you know what to expect out of them every year. And so he took ownership of it. He had a press conference today where he took ownership of it, essentially. And, I'm not normally one known for breaking the rules, but I broke the rules here, is essentially what he said. And so I got to give him respect there. Good job for just taking ownership. Jim Harbaugh didn't do that.
No.
So,
and then it ran for the league. But, they, serving 1 game suspension, it's not too bad. Yeah, so I mean that's
simple
really
as that. Who cares?
Who cares?
Unsalted mashed potatoes. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're not even a fun topic to talk about, and they're our main rival. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I feel like it reminds you, like, we've played Colorado these last couple of years, right? And it reminds you what a real rivalry is really supposed to feel like, because like online, it's like, I respect the shit that they talk. I'll respect it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, they're at least going hard at it, versus Iowa is just like, bro, y'all have the last ranked offense. You have the coach who has the exact opposite problem as Lincoln Riley. You know what you're getting every year in him. So it's like you have nothing to stand on, versus Colorado is at least like, well, they're just trying to catch their lightning in the bottle these couple of years. And, their fans are betting on like 100-1 odds scenario to play out. And like, I respect him for it, because it's like, man, that takes a lot of balls to throw all your wind behind the Dion is going to blah, 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 blah hype train, when we both know that, like, come on, it's going to crash and burn over there.
Eventually.
But I'm just saying, like, I Colorado, it just goes deeper to me than the Iowa rivalry still,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, let's talk about the year.
Let's talk about us. So how we're going to do this, we're going to take turns, picking our games. I'm going to be writing them down in this lovely little chart. So I will put yours, and I'm going to I'm going to just go ahead and say that you're going to say win.
Now, hold on. Yes.
But I'm going to add a slash. And what that slash is going to be is what the actual result was going to be. And every week we're going to come in and we're going to update this final tab. I just pointed like people could see on my screen. We're going to update this final tab when we talk about our preview for the next week, right?
Yeah.
So we'll keep track of what we were before the season, what we were during this season for our previews, and then what the final is, what the actual outcome. So that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said,
So win for me, win for you. Come on, but you don't get to take time talking about it if I don't.
No. Yeah, I do. I will say, I don't think we win by like 30 points. I think
I
we
mean, the
win by like
line's
probably
28. The line's 28.
28. I don't think we
Yeah.
cover that.
So if I had to bet on it right now, I'd say nah, because like it just all seems too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
But it's like if it is what it is, if it is what the outsiders think it may be, and what Raiola's potential looks like it could be, and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, this should be one of those route games where we score 40, maybe even the 50s type points. So we'll see. I anticipate it'll be like some sort of ugly 35-21, 35-17 type Nebraska win.
Yeah. We'll get into it on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So for Colorado, where are you going? You're going to be at this game.
Yes.
So where are you going with it?
I'm just going win right now. We'll go win.
You'll go win.
We'll go win.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we still have some growing pains to do. Shador and I think their defense is going to be a little better. I just think
we'll see.
We'll see. I might feel differently after seeing UTEP as well. That's why we do preseason
win.
and
Put
and
the
win.
win in for there. Yeah.
I don't know.
Come on. We got real problems if either of those games are in question.
Absolutely. All right.
Yes.
Illinois. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go win.
You go win for Illinois.
Yeah, we'll go in right now. And all these games that are at home, I mean, I really think we just have an opportunity to collect ourselves.
Yeah,
it's a comfortable environment. I mean, it just seems like those should be the ones.
This is the year to start a true freshman, regardless of who the true freshman is. It's a great one to do it. 4 games at home.
Well, look at it. I mean, it looks like Adrian Martinez's freshman year laid out, right? Yeah. I mean, except for Akron got canceled, and then you have Colorado at home. So if UTEP gets canceled and then Colorado at home, it's the same exact scenario. So win for Illinois, and then at Purdue. That's more toss up, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is more of a toss up. People keep looking ahead to this Rutgers game just nationally, right?
Yeah,
I don't see Purdue being as bad as they were last year, and people forget didn't they win their like first 5 games,
something like that.
Yeah, I mean they were like undefeated through the first couple of weeks of the season, and then they got injured. They didn't have a lot of depth. The wheels kind of fell off. I think their coach is good. Whether he is a head coach or not is TBD. But we'll see. So with that for me at least, I'm still going to still do a win, but it'll be a normal Big Ten West game, like really close.
Yeah. So like here's my thought process here, right? So like I need us to drop one of these games because I'm just not going to predict us to go 7-0 going into Ohio State. It's just, but I do think like nice, Colorado this year is a real opportunity at home under the lights for us to like show who Big Brother is. So I don't think it's going to be that one, but one of these 3 games, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana, I think it's going to be like, I think it's going to be this one. Let's say loss.
Okay.
Yes. And here's why, because I just think this is freshman quarterback. It's first away game. If it's a night game, I don't know what the time is yet. If it's a night game, either way, it's just, Purdue is a low key, decently tough environment to play in if it's popping. If they have a good start to the year and, their fans are engaged, it is actually a pretty decent little environment.
Yeah.
Freshman quarterback, I think that's where it starts like, it's like, okay, he had his freshman game. It was right there in Purdue. So that's how I see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. I just think we have more talent than them. And I as we'll get into this one, I do actually think, Shiano is a proven like good coach. And he's in year 3, 4, 3 or 4. He's going to, have a decent team. And they've been playing, like they played at Ohio State close, like the past couple of years. And, like eventually Ohio State runs away because of more talent. But I think that gap is closing just from what they've been doing in the offseason. And, I do think that this is another L for us, which is funny. I have us losing twice at home. But
that's funny. I just don't see. I think that the home will be our strength, especially so in my scenario, we've lost to Purdue, right? So I think that it'll be like a check for us a little bit. And I think Raiola is truly very high football IQ just from his background and everything. So yes, Rutgers, I believe, does have a stout defense, but I think this is the game where it starts to be like, okay, this kid is the real deal.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's calling things and checking into hot routes and things like that that are advantageous, and he's calling the right protections for he's just, that's the type of thing we need. You got to be dynamic on offense to match a dynamic defense, and Shiano, make no bones about it, he has a dynamic defense. So yeah, I put it down as a win.
Okay, awesome. So Indiana, new regime change, right?
Yes. What's his name?
Tom Allen.
No, his name was Tom Allen.
His name was Tom Allen. His name was
Tom Robert Paulson.
His name was Robert Paulson.
Football head coach Kirk Cinetti. Yeah, my name's Kirk Cinetti. I win. Google me. That's what he said at his first press conference. So win. I gotta win. We're winning.
Yeah. Winning at Indiana. All right.
Yeah, we're hitting our stride by this moment. There's a fear of overlooking it, especially if we're in my scenario, we're 5-1 or whatever. So there's a little bit of danger in that, overlooking that type of game. But I just think we're so much more talented than them. We'll be hitting our stride by then. Yeah. So
Ohio State.
Yeah, loss.
Yeah.
You just really hope that they make it respectable and make it to where, like, by halftime, people, all you want really is like halftime score going into halftime, and you got people watching other games nationally, and they see the score on the bottom, rotator, and they're like, oh, Nebraska, keeping it close. That's all you want.
Especially if we can go in there as a one-loss team.
Yes.
Probably ranked.
It's the best team money can buy if they run the table this year. Look, like,
if we can look like a top 25 team that belongs on the field, that's a win.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But with Ohio State, if they run the table this year and they go all the way with their roster, like, there's going to be arguments that, like, this is the greatest college football team of all time, because, like, I'm telling you, they're just completely loaded with first rounders at every position.
I know.
It's crazy. But anyway, UCLA, that's an interesting one to talk about.
Yeah, UCLA, new coach at home. So
Eric
they have
Bieniemy, offensive coordinator, by the way.
Huh?
Did you know Eric Bieniemy is their offensive coordinator?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
really?
Interesting, right?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's some, like, aspects about their team that I've learned that I'm like, Again, I think maybe it was a little bit of like a reward for his team. If y'all do this, I'm gonna go up there for my speech and I'm just gonna be awkward as hell.
Yeah. But here's the thing. They're a California team that has to go to Lincoln, Nebraska in November.
Yes.
If the weather is what it could be, they're in for a rude awakening, because they don't really have to do that. Like, Oregon and Washington can definitely get cold, but it's not like Lincoln in the winter. So what you getting, win or loss?
I got to win, but it's sneaky because UCLA is one of those teams that, like, we lost to them twice, right? With our home and home. Yeah. And they were both like games where it was like, man, we were kind of controlling them, and then we lost them. And I know that was like 2012, 2013, but I don't know. They're one of those teams, but yeah, I have it as a win.
Yeah, but as a win. And hold on. I'm going to have it as a win as well.
Okay.
Now, the other team from California, we get to go there. Interesting. It's going to be weird going there. At that time of year.
2004 2005 was the last time that Nebraska went to USC, I think.
Yeah, never in
2005.
November.
Yeah, exactly. I just
so-
remember being at one of your football games and watching Nebraska versus USC on one of those mini like TVs with the antennas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an intriguing one because
Yeah.
USC could be, kind of what they were last year, a really good offense and a piss poor defense. Everyone's just kind of assuming that their defense is going to be so much better. But who knows? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, like, say Tony White, Nebraska's defense was very subpar. It was, but their defense before Rule got there, they had all the pieces for a great defense, and their defense was not nearly as bad as USC's was last year.
Right.
Before the new defensive coordinator got there, and Lincoln Riley really hasn't had elite defenses, so I think it's a little bit premature to just be like, oh, they're gonna, and so, I'll just go first. I think we win this game.
Oh, yeah, and I completely agree. We've talked about the Colorado game and how it's such a good example of a dichotomy of philosophies.
Yeah.
I feel like the USC game is going to be a really good example of like a team that's got to shift its philosophies now that it's in the Big Ten. You know what I mean? Like, and the Nebraska game, I think, is going to be an example of that.
Yeah.
Because look, the core of the problem for USC's defense is not, oh, they didn't have the right defensive coordinator. Oh, they don't have enough talent. It's not any of that. It's the way they practice. I've said this a couple times on the show, but it's the way they practice. And Lincoln Riley practices are offensive oriented, and they always have been. He's been a major head football coach in Division I for a decade at this point. And so you have a track record of what we can expect from Lincoln Riley. But now all of a sudden he's got a new guy and it's going to be different. Who knows? I mean, you have the example of Nebraska in 2022, right? Where we were terrible for the first 3 games. And it was like, there's no hope for this defense. And Bill Busch comes in, and the thing that he said is he was like, I just told him to keep your feet set and stay in your position.
Radical stuff.
I know, insane. And so it's like, what were they being told before? So you just never know. You just never know like what the actual details of the situation are. So who knows? There could be a couple things they changed in their practice structure. I know they've beefed up. They've gotten some more Big Ten level talent in the trenches. I know that's a fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going with win as well.
Yeah.
That is one of the more interesting games of the year, though, for sure.
Yeah. And then Wisconsin, we get to Wisconsin at home.
Yeah.
Luke Fickell, second year. I don't think I don't think they're going to be great. People are acting like their transfer quarterback is again like a game breaker, and he wasn't that at his previous school. But I do think they're better this year. And so I do think that they come into Lincoln and we still get the Wisconsin bug.
Yeah.
Because at this point we won 7 games, which is ecstatic. So right now we're just trying to hit the over on the preseason betting and everything for our win totals. And, I do think we dropped this one.
Yeah. The Wisconsin bug's a great way to put it because I think that like Luke Fickell essentially is Scott Frost in scheme. Like the schemes that he brought to Wisconsin, that he brought to Cincinnati, very similar in style to like what Scott Frost was trying to do in Lincoln. But he's so much more process oriented, and he's just so much more organized as a head coach and experienced as a head coach that like he has that to lean on, right? So like I do think over the long term, Rule's philosophy will play out and make us a superior program to Wisconsin in the Big Ten. But I think right now, Fickell's detail-oriented nature and his process-oriented, they'll be good. They'll be good enough. And it's the Wisconsin bug. That's the thing. That's exactly what you just said, right? So I think ultimately, if you look at the rosters, I think it's starting to get to the point where it's obvious that like, okay, Nebraska should have a better team than Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's still good enough. and it's Wisconsin. And we
Yeah.
beat them once since we joined the Big Ten. And then in that same very year, they were the third ranked team in their division, but both teams above them were suspended. So they were let into the Big Ten championship in a year that we beat them, and they beat us 70-31. So it's like this thing, like you said, the Wisconsin bug. It's this hump we got to get over as Nebraska. And unfortunately, I think some of these little quote unquote curses that some people are going to talk about are going to be not, completely overturned yet this year, and Wisconsin's one of them, but we'll see. But I agree, loss for Wisconsin.
All righty. So a loss for Wisconsin for you.
Yes.
And let's get to Iowa, because that's another bug. Okay.
When I don't even want to talk. They're so boring, dude. And their offense ain't going to get any better. By this point, it's like, screw Iowa. We're just going to beat their ass. It's going to be a night game, which lends itself to here. Let me think about this. So normally it's an 11 a.m. game, right? And right. It was normally an 11 a.m. game. I'm pretty
it's
sure
fluctuated a little bit, but the past couple, it's been
right. And it's an away game on Black Friday. So 11 a.m. away game, Black Friday, lends itself to not being great for traveling because it's the holiday and you got to get out there early. It's a night game now. It's a night game, and it's not that far. So I think there's going to be more Nebraska fans there than there have been in a long time in Kinnick Stadium. And win. I just think their offense is so abysmal. By then, we'll be firing on all cylinders.
Brian isn't their offensive coordinator anymore. They could be good.
They could go back to the 115th best offense in the country instead of the 130th.
But again, they're still going to have an elite defense. It just depends on what type of team we have going at this point. Like if we're still turnover machines, but those close wins are going to losses, like against Iowa, if you have that kind of same game, you are going to lose because that's their type of football.
Yeah.
And I'm torn with this because I had a number in my head that I wasn't going to predict. But I know these technically aren't final. This is just preseason.
Yeah.
So I am going to go with a win, but I really wanted to put a loss.
Look,
because I really thought 7-5. Right, I really thought 7-5.
Look, but you're like everybody with the political season, everybody has been talking about the meme energy, right? The meme energy. Who's the meme energy with? Is it with this side or was it with that side? Well, I can tell you one thing's for certain that the meme energy is not with. The meme energy is not with Iowa, because all of the funniest memes that are about Iowa are just completely, shitting on them essentially. So we'll see. It feels like, I've said this for a while, it feels like Kirk's maybe on his way out. He's an older coach. They've been looking for some, the Big Ten's changed a lot since he first started coaching there. I don't want to say I like him, but I respect him as a coach.
Sure.
Even though he's boring, he reminds me of Bill Belichick. But anyway, so I predict 9-3 and you predict 8-4,
8-4. Yeah, as always, you're a lot more optimistic than me.
A little more optimistic. Colorado is the only thing.
This year, you weren't nearly as more optimistic than me. Usually, it's been like 3 to 4 games, and I've even overhyped. Like I think I had us going 7-5 last year.
Yeah, so did I. I had us like 7-5 or 8-4. 2 years ago, I had us going 10-2 for Scott Frost's final year.
Yeah, you did.
I was like, screw it, dude. Like, like if we're gonna be good, we're gonna be good. And this schedule's not that bad. But nope, we lost to a 1-11 Northwestern team in Ireland. A team that was led by, a guy who got fired 6 months later for a hazing scandal, and we were their only. We were his last win.
Yeah.
Crazy.
His last win. Oh
crazy. Okay, so that's fun.
So I mean,
there's our predictions.
Honestly, even like a 6-6 season would fill me with a lot of hope at this point. Like even if they underperform but get to a bowl game, I don't know. I'm getting to the point where if we don't start getting records like this, I'm going to not start losing hope. I'm a fan for life. It's just going to be a lot harder. lot.
Oh, and
harder.
I'll tell you what, like you say 6-6. I'm like, yeah, look, we need a recruiting springboard this year. We need to something to definitively show recruits, and the bare minimum for that
It's
7-4 or 7-5. It's the
7-5.
bare minimum. You can swing it as a salesman with 7-5. You know what I mean? It's obvious to anybody 8-4 and above. You know what I mean? It's obvious to anybody that it's like, okay, that's a big jump.
It's also how you're losing. That's what we're using right now. It's like how you're losing. But like, how do these losses look? Like if they're still close losses, but we have some blowout wins, and then we're just making some mistakes here or there, but like we're very close to being like undefeated, say.
Yeah.
That's like, but be 6-6. That is a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you can help us
No doubt.
over the top.
No doubt. It is. It is. It just would be a recruiting launch pad if it's 8-4 or 9-3. It really would. I mean, look. Here's the thing. You just look at our roster. You look at the schedule. If I was just an alien who just came to Earth and had no contextual memories of the last couple seasons, and I just looked at the roster and the schedule of Nebraska, I'd be like, oh, 10-2, easy. You know what I mean? Like, and realistically, like, we got a 5-star rent-a-car quarterback. Our schedule's set up very favorably. And like, if we play fully clean and not just clean elite, it could be that. But like, hold your horses. You know what I mean? We got to prove some things to us first before we start making those types of predictions. I mean, look, 9-3 is like on the that's, and I was thinking about this a lot. That's about the nicest
ceiling.
I could be. You know, that's about the nicest I could be was 9-3. I was like, I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I want to be as positive as I can be. But to me, that 9-3 is relatively realistic, especially with that schedule. So, what do you think about your 8-4?
I think it's the middle of the road between the ceiling and what I think is the floor.
Yeah.
So
hope is the floor.
Yeah. So I mean, I really do.
6 and 10-2.
Between
6 and 6 and 10-2. Yeah. I mean, that's how I see it as well. I mean, like, you're gonna drop one game beside Ohio State, no matter what.
But if we can't figure out how to get to a bowl game this year, there's something majorly like.
Oh yeah.
Like
well,
there was a blood pact at some point for us to win all those games, and now we're having to pay our dues. But it'll have been 8 years. Is that right? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If we don't go to a bowl game this year, it'll be 8 years.
Yeah.
Since we went.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we need to go.
Yeah. And it's always funny because every year you're like, oh well, next year we'll do it. Oh well, next year. Oh well, next year. And now they've piled up there. It used to be, oh well, next year we'll get back to the Natty, like when we were kids. And now we're like, oh well, next year we'll get to the conference championship again. Oh, look, next year we'll get to a bowl.
It's you can be more optimistic now because you look at my 9-3, and I don't think it gets us there, but we're a playoff bubble team if we're 9-3.
At 9-3,
yeah, you know what I mean. Like, I don't know if it gets us there, but we're in the Big Ten. We definitely would be in the conversation in November. Say like look at the timeline, right? We lose to Ohio State, but then we win against UCLA and USC. So those 2 wins going into the Wisconsin game, the conversation around Nebraska will be, can they finish out at 10-2? And possibly make the playoff, which is really cool.
Not even
that's
that.
Like cool.
Depending on how the rest of the league looks with all this upheaval, 9-3 could be good enough to get to Indy. It could. And you win that game, then you're just in.
Yeah. 10-2 certainly puts you in that conversation. I mean, 10-2 is like probably will, but 9-3 could. That's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
I mean, people have talked about how it diminished. Could. We'll say it more.
Could.
People have talked about. I've heard some arguments talking about how, I don't like this new playoff structure because it diminishes the regular season and it diminishes the playoff importance and yada yada yada. And I agree, kind of to an extent. Not agree, but I see their perspective. But like, look, this playoff is going to be so awesome. It's so much more. there's just so much more possibility for interesting matchups. And look, at the end of the day, the regular season is only 12 games anyway. Each game's going to be important regardless. If Alabama somehow drops a game to North Dakota State or a team like that, group of 5 team, in week 1, it's as impactful as it ever will be, because, even if they go 10-2 like that, that's going to be a black mark on their resume. So yeah, it's definitely the most anticipated year of college football I can remember in a long time. Yeah. I'm excited. We got some football in 2 days, man. 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days.
So,
and Dublin.
Yeah.
The Aer Lingus.
Yes.
I'll tell you, I just flew on Aer Lingus. Very nice airline.
Very nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So last thing, national championship. Let's predict the national championship champion. National champion. Yeah. So, I mean, before it was like, which one of these 3 teams do you think will be the national champion? That's how it felt going into every year, right? And now it's like, which one of these 5 teams will be the national champion? Yeah. You could pick. To me, like, the realistic options are Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Michigan. Yeah. Just because their rosters, it's still really good. I mean, look, Jim Harbaugh built that roster 3-4 levels deep. So, like, they still got a lot of that stuff. So that's why I put them at the 5, because they're the defending national champion. We want to respect them. But to me, those are the realistic options. You got maybe like Ole Miss. You could throw in a Texas. You could throw in one of those out of left field type options that, But who do you think? Who do you think is going to win the Natty?
I think that it will finally click, and I think Ohio State.
I thought you were going to say Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska.
Like we just spent 30 minutes.
Yeah, no. I think because listen, Chip Kelly gave up a head coaching job to be a coordinator again. And he had righted the ship at UCLA. Like they were not like a game breaker, but they were winning again. And so he kind of abandoned ship because he wanted to join that, because he saw what they were doing and was like, yeah, I can do it a little better too.
Yeah.
So
look, even when he was you are a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and even when Chip Kelly was at Philadelphia, like, his teams weren't perfect, but his offenses pretty much were always relatively dynamic and fun to watch.
Up until last year, when the wheels fell off and they couldn't do anything.
That tends to happen at the end of coaching tenures in the NFL anyway, because if you're not firing at all cylinders in the NFL, it shows, because everybody else is. Yeah. So. But anyway, he's incredible storyline of the offseason is like I talked about earlier with them, I believe on this show, best team money can buy, right? With Ohio State. And if they run the table, people are going to talk about one of the most talented college football teams of all time. But then, like, they got Jim, the defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State 2 years ago, who was a Broyles Award winner. They hired him, and their defense has gone up every year since then. And then they bring in Chip Kelly, who was a head coach, a guy who, I mean, are you kidding me? At offensive coordinator? Like,
yeah. And I think the biggest question for them is actually the quarterback position.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And listen, like, Will Howard can be good.
Yeah.
Like, he showed it his, I guess, sophomore year, whenever Adrian got hurt.
Yeah.
And he was like different playing style too. They completely changed their offense. He's, different. So, I mean, and he's being coached by different coaches where he is now. So we'll see. We'll see how he performs. But look what they did with Kyle McCord last year. And let's just say it now. Like, Kyle McCord is so unimpressive.
Yeah, he's not that good.
And Will Howard is a step up from him for sure.
Yeah, right? He's more of a playmaker, I'd say.
Yeah. So,
but even him, it's like he left Kansas State. He left Kansas State because, look, and Avery Johnson. I mean, Avery Johnson's going to be really good, but he left Kansas State because he was about to get beat out by, a redshirt freshman. So, I agree. The quarterback position is the biggest question mark for Ohio State. No doubt about it.
I think they have more pieces. So who do you have?
So my pick is going to remain from what we talked about the other day, and I'm going to pick Alabama. And for the one reason that they got Jalen Milroe coming back, he's an absolute stud playmaker. I mean, the dude is an athletic freak, and it's sort of like a better version of a lot of the types of quarterbacks that Nebraska has had in the last 15 years, which is like a true stud athlete. And we're all like, can he put it together as a quarterback? Right. And that's kind of been a little bit the type of conversation they've had around Milroe. But I think from all accounts in the offseason, he's taken a step up, and he's a real difference maker for them at quarterback. But the thing I want to focus on with Alabama is the Kalen DeBoer conversation. I think if you just look at his track record, he has a track record of not only it's like 105-4 or something like that over the course of, that's his record. But it's not only that, it's like he takes over programs before Washington, his MO was he takes over programs that are dominating and he keeps them dominating. He took over, I believe it was Sioux Falls. It was Sioux Falls or somewhere like that. Yeah, Sioux Falls. And they had already won like 3 titles before he got there. And then he was their coach for 7 years and they won 6 titles in 7 years. So it's like, he just kept them going. And then he goes to Washington and it was like, watch me build. You know what I mean? Like they weren't like that good before he got there. They weren't terrible, but they weren't that good. And then he comes in and in year 1, you remember like his second game, it was actually the day we lost to Oklahoma, I believe. And his second game as a head coach, I was like, let's flip to that Michigan State versus Washington game. And we flipped to it and Washington was winning by like 30 points. And then, the story wrote itself there. They went 10-2 that year. And then the next year they ran the table and were in the national championship game. So, he's impressive. He's impressive and his track record speaks for itself. And Alabama is a place that's set up for success. So yeah, I just think that it just feels like the type of thing that's going to happen where it's going to be like, yeah, Nick Saban's gone. And then the year he leaves, they win the Natty.
Yeah. But replacing a legend, you're going to have growing pains. And it wasn't like, now I won't go so far. Like look at like New England, and what they're going to deal with this year. Like New England, they're going to suck. They're going to be terrible. And if they're not, it's pure miracle. Like they were on a downslide and, Belichick basically got fired without actually officially getting fired. That's what happened there. That's not what happened with Saban. Saban was just tired of the game that college football had turned into. He's just like, you know what? I've had enough. I'm just going to step back. That's what happened. He left it in a good place. Yeah. But there are learning curves. You're right. I think it's going to show up a little bit. I think at most they only lose like 2 games, if any. But there are going to be some like learning curves with leaving that behind. There's have to be.
Could be.
If there's not, like,
it's just I have 105-4 reasons why it might not be the case at all. You know what I mean? Like it's like in college football, Bill Bush, this is so anti-Bill Bush philosophy, but Bill Bush talks about how like the players are like the thing that makes you good as a coach, right? Like I'll show you a good coach and show you a million good players or whatever. Like all his roster is what makes him. But I don't know, man. Like from my perspective as a fan in college football, it just seems like there's certain coaches that just kind of got it. And like if they step into the right situation, like it's going to be great. Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Like Ohio State, to me, this was the one that's like burning in my mind. Like Ohio State, they go 6-6 with Luke Fickell, right? And they had sort of like a down year because of the transition, because of the scandal. And then Urban Meyer comes in and it's like, oh, they have a postseason ban. Oh, well, so it doesn't matter. But remember, they were like this looming force that didn't matter, but like everyone was like, holy crap, because they were so good and they went 12-0 that year. And it was like, I was like, oh, okay, Urban Meyer has an undeniable track record. And then he gets to Ohio State, which is an absolute powerhouse of recruiting and of resources. And then they already had a pretty good roster because they were Ohio State. Boom. You know what I mean? So when it comes to Kalen DeBoer, I see it as a situation a lot like that, honestly.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, but I think that's going to be it, though. We'll do our preview next Wednesday or Thursday before our UTEP game. That one shouldn't be long. Just
Nah.
we'll probably recap. Actually, let's do this. Let's do it as close. Wait, no.
No, yeah, you want to give it time to breathe. Let's do it Wednesday.
Because I was going to say maybe
Tuesday?
we do it after Colorado plays.
Oh, when is that?
They play on Thursday.
Oh, I wish. No.
Yeah, but
we're gonna do another one
but we'll
with
do it,
Greg like the week after it happened to
yeah,
Colorado. So
yeah, we'll have Colorado fan Greg on and everything.
yes.
But yeah, so we'll do it like Wednesday or Thursday next week. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, you can find us anywhere audio podcasts are found, even probably somewhere on the dark web. You can follow us on Twitter at @CHusker_corner and Instagram Cornhusker Corner. But yeah, always remember that there's no this podcast